All right, guys, we are back at Black Mountain. Just a quick Black Widow run. Still trying to feel out the progressive spring on the shock. Now, since I get pretty bored on this climb, allow me to nerd out a little bit. Now, I want to preface by saying I'm definitely not an expert, and so today I want to talk a little bit about progressivity. Now, on a mountain bike, progressivity can mean many things. We can talk about the progressiveness of the fork, the frame, and the shock. Now, the fork is pretty straightforward. You can add tokens and essentially spacers to adjust how progressive the dampening is, similarly to an air shock. And of course, we touched upon progressive springs for a coil shock. And today, I want to talk a little bit about the suspension linkage, essentially your frame, how progressive it is. Some frames you can find information online about the progressivity, and the definition of that is basically how much the leverage ratio changes throughout travel. So for the Orbea Rise Hydro, you have 140 travel in the rear, and the shock is 55mm stroke. And in the beginning of the travel, the very first millimeter of travel through stroke, the rear wheel moves about 2.8mm. In the beginning, the leverage ratio is about 2.8. Now, as the rear wheel travel through the shock stroke drops down to about 2.25, 2.3. And you take the difference in the leverage ratio and you divide that by max ratio, which is 2.8, and you have essentially the progressivity. Every frame is different. Orbea Rise is coming somewhere in the middle. Not quite linear, but not very progressive either. Not all frames would benefit from coil shock because coil are meant to be linear. Air shocks are more progressive. Until recent years, you have the progressive springs allowing more progressivity on the coil shocks. In short, if you have a linear frame, you definitely would benefit from a progressive shock, whether it be air shock or a coil with progressive spring. Now, vice versa, if you have an extremely progressive frame, you probably don't need a progressive spring or a very progressive air shock by inserting too many tokens. You can get away with a simple linear spring. Now, if you go linear spring with a linear frame, the chances of bottoming out are extremely high unless you overshoot your spring rate. But the downside for that would be you don't get the small bump compliance. On the other side of the spectrum, if you put a very progressive spring on a very progressive frame, you probably will never bottom out, but the feel throughout the stroke will ramp up pretty quick, and that probably wouldn't be too comfortable either. So all in all, it's really about finding the happy medium and trying out different things. Hello. And that's why it intrigues me. Now, speaking of bottoming out, because I don't do crazy jumps, crazy drops, it's less of a concern for me, but for people who does big jumps and big drops, there are two coil shocks that have hydraulic bottom out control system. The first one is EXT Storia, and the second one is Push 11.6. Now, both of these springs are essentially top of the line. These are both over $1,000 for a shock, but what they have is a secondary piston system that would dampen the last 15% of your travel. Now, do I need it? Probably not. Did I ever have a push? Yes, on my Gorilla Gravity. Did I take full advantage of it? Probably not. But do I want it? Fuck yes. So with that said, I was browsing on Push Industries website, and to my surprise, they actually developed a shock for Orbea Rise. Now, I'm pretty sure the Hydro has the same geometry, so it should work as well, but I'm going to find out a little bit more. All right, here we go. Whew, wrong gear. All right, so today I'm gonna try to leave it in boost mode. We'll see how it goes. Safety first. Definitely don't want to accelerate through turns. Whew. Yeah. Ah, stupid bell. Shut up. You guys are not the only one that hates the bell, trust me. All right. boost mode just goes. So definitely gotta be careful. Whew. Okay. Oh shit. Damn. Okay. So that part doesn't get any easier with time. And my sunglasses falling off, so I'm gonna adjust it a little. Whew, a little bumpy over there. So yeah. Yep, so boost mode certainly help you boosting out of corners, but you just gotta concentrate and know when to pedal. Definitely a wrong line there. Ah. Okay, sunglasses falling off again. I think my helmet is too loose. Something is moving my sunglasses around. All right, so I'm gonna stop right here and adjust it. Safety first. Okay, oil still feels pretty good. Okay, all right. A little loose here. All right. Yeah, that turn always gets me. A little tight. Weight shifting is not there yet. And yeah. So yeah, definitely not the best efforts today, but safety first. Yeah. Whew. Arms definitely sore. Go around this rock today. Ooh, shit. Yeah. Woo. All right, so definitely not as in control today. Could be fatigue. But again, the trail's not going anywhere. Safety first. All right, we'll just cool down here. Woo!